On a stormy day, my husband went out of his way to take his young assistant home. Despite being 6 months pregnant, the moment I walked through the door, I demanded a divorce. Hearing my words, my exhausted husband looked at me in disbelief. It was just a little extra time in the car. Is it really that big of a deal? Was it a little extra time? A drive that should have taken 10 minutes turned into nearly 2 hours of me being forced to watch them exchange flirtatious glances from the back seat. And this was the same husband who had given me the silent treatment for 3 days because I had a sip of lemonade in the car, claiming I had tainted the air. Yet, when his little assistant complained of a stomachache, he had run out in the pouring rain to buy her a hot drink and roasted sweet potatoes. Seeing that my expression was not one of pretense, my husband glanced at my pregnant belly. "Don't say I didn't warn you. If we get a divorce, you and the baby will not have an easy life." I just smiled and said nothing. I wasn't even planning on keeping him. How could I possibly keep his child? Caught in a downpour, the ride-sharing app showed over 100 people ahead of me in the queue. Left with no other choice, I had to call Adrian, who had been giving me the silent treatment for 3 days, and ask him to give me a ride home after work. He arrived quickly, but in his passenger seat was his young assistant, Mrs. Thorne. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Thorne said the rain was too heavy and he was worried about me going home alone. How about I sit in the back?" The moment she touched the door handle, Adrian's cold voice cut in. "Stay where you are. Don't worry about her." Chloe stuck out her tongue, an apologetic look on her face, but her eyes were full of provocation. I held my 6-month pregnant belly and carefully got into the car. But before I could even settle in, the car lurched forward. My stomach hit the front seat. I cried out in alarm, and the baby inside me stirred restlessly. Before I could complain, I heard Adrian mutter under his breath, "Is it really that big of a deal?" So dramatic. Chloe let out a pft of laughter, then covered her mouth and exchanged a smile with Adrian. A strange feeling welled up inside me, but before I could dwell on it, the two in the front began discussing the next day's schedule. Outside the car window, the rain fell in a dense sheet. I couldn't see clearly outside and could only judge how far we were from home by memory. When it was time to turn, I noticed Adrian hadn't used his turn signal. I reminded him, "Aren't you taking Chloe home? You can just drop me off at the entrance to our complex." The security guard had a spare umbrella. Even if I got a little wet, a hot shower at home would be fine. Adrian glanced at me in the rearview mirror and said unhurriedly, "The traffic is heavy right now. It'll be late by the time I get Chloe home. I don't want to come home after a long day just to be interrogated by you about where the perfume smell came from." The sarcasm was palpable. I knew Adrian was referring to the fight we had 3 months ago. This pregnancy had not been easy to achieve. So even though I had quit my job to rest at home for the baby, and even though the morning sickness was severe, the thought of having a child that belonged to Adrian and me in a few months made it all worthwhile. The days of resting at home were not so comfortable. I had to endure my mother-in-law's constant jibes and worry about falling behind professionally because of childbirth. And on the day my mother-in-law and I had a small argument, Adrian had come home smelling strongly of perfume. Seeing my expression, Adrian had proactively explained that the scent was Chloe's, because she had sprained her ankle, and in the process of taking her to the hospital, they had been in close contact for a few minutes. A woman's intuition is a strange thing. Before that, I had seen Chloe's name in the company's group chat, a recent graduate, sweet, talking, and emotionally intelligent. She had only been at the company for a few days, but was already bantering with many of the senior employees. I had actually liked her, but that was before she became Adrian's assistant. It wasn't that I was possessive. I just didn't understand. Adrian, who had always valued efficiency and professionalism, why would he keep a fine arts graduate by his side? And why would he have everyone hide it from me? Due to the nature of our industry, the assistants who worked closely with Adrian were all senior employees who had been with the company for several years. And without exception, they were all men. It wasn't that Adrian was particularly mindful of appearances. It was that after a series of female assistants had accidentally spilled coffee on him and on the contracts, he had furiously informed HR that no women were to be in his immediate work circle. That day, I had simply asked why he was making an exception for Chloe. Adrian's face had darkened, and he had yelled at me, My mother-in-law had chimed in, saying I was just making trouble because my life was too easy. In truth, I had never said anything more about the perfume incident. But now, months later, I was being ridiculed by Adrian. I had to laugh. Boss, how can you say that to Mrs. Thorne? Being pregnant is hard. Chloe lightly punched Adrian's arm. And he, who was usually so stoic in front of others, didn't even get angry. Instead, he agreed softly. You're right. I shouldn't have said that. As they were talking, the car had already driven 2 blocks further. I could have insisted on getting out, but the roads were slippery from the rain. I couldn't risk the baby's safety. The car was a bit stuffy, and with my emotional turmoil, the baby kicked me in protest. I cracked the window open a little to get some fresh air, but before I could even take a breath, Chloe in the front seat said, "Ooh, it's so cold." The air conditioning was on in the car, and Chloe, in her shorts in the passenger seat, was right in front of a vent. Before I opened the window, she had shown no reaction. I had even seen her fanning herself with her hand. I had only opened the window a crack. Why was she suddenly cold? I didn't believe that Adrian couldn't see she was doing it on purpose. But he just shot me a warning glance in the rearview mirror. It's pouring outside. Why did you open the window? Are you going to clean the car if it gets dirty? Never mind that Adrian's car was always taken to be cleaned by his assistants. A little rain. How dirty could it get? To put it bluntly, he was defending Chloe. It's a bit stuffy in here. I can't breathe. Hearing my words, Adrian didn't say anything more, but his expression already betrayed his inner displeasure. I had called Adrian for help with the intention of making up. Now it seemed that even if I had walked home in the rain, I would have been better off. Why are you so grumpy? Pregnant women are more sensitive to heat than normal people. How can you be so inconsiderate? This was a rather presumptuous thing to say, but Adrian didn't seem to have a problem with it. Instead, his expression immediately softened. He even freed his right hand to ruffle Chloe's hair. I was wrong. I shouldn't have lost my temper in front of you. You weren't scared, were you? The two of them started talking about funny things that had happened at work. For a moment, I felt like an extra in the back seat. Mrs. Thorne, we still have a while to go. Are you hungry? I have some mini breads in my bag. You can have some. With that, Chloe tossed 2 of them to me. I was about to refuse, but seeing Chloe tear open the package and start eating, I quickly said, "Don't. He doesn't like." Before I could finish, Chloe had expertly thrown the wrapper into the ashtray, and Adrian, who I had expected to show his displeasure, didn't even look. Instead, he said to Chloe softly, "Eat slowly. No one's going to steal it from you." Seeing Adrian's different attitude towards another woman with my own eyes, my heart felt like it was being squeezed by a large hand. I clutched the mini breads, not realizing the wrapper was crinkling. Adrian had a severe case of mysophobia and hated the smell of food in his bedroom, office, and car. In our 4 years of dating and 5 years of marriage, I had never broken his rule. The argument 3 days ago had been for a very simple reason. On the way back from my parents' house, I was thirsty and bought a cup of lemonade. I thought that the fresh, subtle scent of lemon wouldn't bother Adrian. But after I took one sip, Adrian suddenly pulled the car over. We're only 10 minutes from home. Are you that thirsty? Do you have to drink that crap in my car? Faced with his sudden outburst, I was both stunned and hurt. Tears streamed down my face, and Adrian just frowned and scolded. Don't use pregnancy as an excuse. I've never seen a pregnant woman as greedy and difficult as you. I'm tired enough from working all day to make money. Can you please not annoy me? The pregnancy hormones were acting up. The thought of his impatience with me and his tolerance for Chloe made me cry again. Not wanting to be made a fool of, I pressed myself against the car door, wiped my face vigorously, and took a few deep breaths to compose myself. Mrs. Thorne, why aren't you eating? These are all from a famous brand I bought online. The ingredients are all clean. Before I could speak, Adrian sneered. Don't mind her. When she's hungry, she could eat a tree. She's not eating because she probably stuffed herself at the mall. Looking at Adrian's profile from the back seat, I was momentarily dazed. How had he become like this? The boy who had stood up for me when I was the subject of malicious rumors. The man who had promised to take care of me for the rest of my life. Why would he belittle me with such a disdainful tone in front of an outsider? I was lost in my own thoughts. feeling the car start and stop. Adrian and Chloe's voices went in one ear and out the other, but I didn't pay any attention to what they were talking about. I only knew that they would burst into laughter from time to time, like a couple in love. The car stopped again. Seeing Adrian unbuckle his seatbelt and get out, I thought we had arrived at Chloe's place, but Chloe was still in the passenger seat. After Adrian closed the door and walked away, she turned to look at me. Mrs. Thorne, when you and the boss were dating, was he this attentive to you? Seeing my confused expression, Chloe explained why Adrian had gotten out in the rain. I'm on my period. The boss saw me holding my stomach and didn't say anything, but then he saw a roasted sweet potato stall nearby and said he would buy me something hot to eat, to warm my stomach. The shyness on Chloe's face was impossible to hide. I wanted to say how attentive Adrian had been to me when we were dating. He remembered my cycle better than I did. Whenever it was about to start, Adrian would pay special attention to my diet. So after we got together, the painful cramps that had plagued me for years disappeared. But that attentive Adrian, I felt like I hadn't seen him in a long time, whether intentionally or not. Chloe went on to talk about how well Adrian treated her at the office. A nameless emotion clogged my chest. I had to try my best to not show any abnormality in front of Chloe. When Adrian got back in the car, his clothes were soaked, but he didn't care. He took the hot drink and roasted sweet potato, which were completely dry, from the bag and handed them to Chloe. Eat it while it's hot. The hot drink is the owner's special. I forgot the name, but the owner said it's very effective when you're not feeling well. Chloe took it with a smile and then broke the sweet potato in half and handed it to me. Mrs. Thorne, this sweet potato is too big. I can't finish it all by myself. You should have some too. I subconsciously glanced at Adrian. He noticed and looked at me with a questioning expression. What are you looking at me for? If you want to eat it, eat it. There are no outsiders here. You don't have to suppress your appetite. With that, he and Chloe exchanged another look and burst into laughter. I forced a stiff smile and shook my head at Chloe. You can have it. I don't like sweet potatoes. They make me feel sick. Ignoring Adrian's questioning gaze, I leaned against the car door, my mind in a turmoil. And Chloe, having been rejected, simply stuffed the other half of the sweet potato into Adrian's hands. Eat it. Roasted sweet potatoes are best when they're hot. And then I saw Adrian, the same man who had scolded me for polluting his car with a sip of lemonade, eat the roasted sweet potato, which smelled 1,000 times stronger than lemonade. So his principles could be broken. It was just that the person breaking them couldn't be me. Half an hour later, we arrived at Chloe's house. Adrian said, "Wait in the car," and then held an umbrella and walked Chloe to her building. In the rain, one of them stood at the entrance, and the others stood in the rain, holding the umbrella. They had been talking nonstop for nearly an hour on the way here, but I could see their reluctance to part. I don't know what they said, but Adrian ruffled Chloe's hair again, then turned and said goodbye. When Adrian got back in the car, my gaze was still fixed on the spot where they had been standing. As he closed the umbrella, he said casually, "I was just confirming with her again about the things we need for the meeting tomorrow. We didn't talk about anything personal, so don't overthink it." Ignoring the sarcasm in his voice, I turned and asked, "Was the roasted sweet potato good?" Adrian looked at me questioningly in the rearview mirror. Roasted sweet potato. What? Don't tell me you want some now. I'm telling you, the owner of that shop has already closed because of the rain. I didn't answer his question, just slowed down my speech and said, word by word, I asked you, was the roasted sweet potato good? Adrian finally noticed that something was wrong with me. He met my gaze without flinching. Suddenly, he sneered. Eleanor, are you serious? You're upset because I bought Chloe a roasted sweet potato. As a woman, have you forgotten how miserable you are when you have cramps? It's pouring rain. The poor girl is not dressed warmly. What's wrong with me buying her a roasted sweet potato? 3 rhetorical questions in a row. When I spoke again, my voice was choked with sobs. Are your principles just for me? Adrian looked at me with a mixture of confusion and the weary expression of someone who thinks I'm being unreasonable again. I was thirsty and had a sip of lemonade, and you said I was greedy and difficult, that I had polluted the air in your car. How come Chloe can eat mini breads and roasted sweet potatoes? Adrian's expression froze. After a long pause, he handed me a tissue, his voice hesitant. Hey, I just wasn't thinking. You don't know. Chloe has low blood sugar. When she feels hungry, she has to eat something, or she'll faint. From now on, I won't restrict where you can eat. If you want to eat snail noodles in the bedroom or have a barbecue in the car, I won't say a word. Is that all right? I had never thought that one day my freedom to eat would be granted to me by another woman. The emotions I had been suppressing all this time finally broke, and tears streamed down my face. Adrian probably knew he was in the wrong, so for once, he didn't look impatient. Seeing that I couldn't calm down, he started the car and slowly turned around. You must be hungry, right? The evening rush hour is over, so we should be able to get back faster. You've been wanting to order takeout, right? Take my phone and see what you want to eat. Order a lot. Don't let our baby go hungry. After the morning sickness had passed, I really did want to eat everything I saw. But I was afraid the baby would be too big for a smooth delivery. And I was also afraid it would be hard to lose the weight after giving birth. So I had been very restrained. Usually, when Adrian and I argued, as long as he calmed down and realized he was in the wrong, he would just buy me something to eat, and I would let it go. But this time, I suddenly felt that it was all so meaningless. On the way back, Adrian tried several times to start a conversation. When he saw that I wasn't responding, he also fell silent and focused on driving. There was a lot of water on the road. By the time we got home, it was already dark. The moment we walked in, Adrian and I spoke at the same time. You didn't order takeout, did you? What do you want to eat? I can make some noodles. Let's get a divorce. Adrian thought he had misheard. He rubbed his temples, his voice tired. What did you just say? I think I misheard. You didn't mishear. I said, let's get a divorce. Adrian's eyes widened in disbelief. Don't tell me it's because of that roasted sweet potato. The thought of divorce had not come out of nowhere. When Adrian and I had been married for years and still had no children, and my mother-in-law had called me a hen that can't lay eggs, I had thought about it. When I had quit my job to rest at home and my mother-in-law had come over from time to call me dramatic and full of myself, I had thought about it. When my mother-in-law had told the neighbors that I was living off Adrian, that I had nothing but a pretty face, I had thought about it countless times. The thought of divorce had crossed my mind, but I had always managed to talk myself out of it, because the person I was living with was Adrian, not his mother. I shouldn't take my anger out on him. Adrian had no major flaws. He would come home right after work, and his phone was never password protected from me. He knew his mother liked to find fault, so he would always try to smooth things over between us. He would praise me in front of his mother and ask her not to show up at our house unannounced. I knew that the company was in a crucial stage of development and that he was under a lot of pressure at work. So, when Adrian occasionally brought his work stress home and we argued over small things, I never took it to heart. I would never hold a grudge until the next day, and Adrian would always be able to figure out what had gone wrong and would take the initiative to apologize to me. A man like that, so successful, so family-oriented, so able to recognize his own mistakes. I had never thought I would really leave him. But today, in the past 2 hours, I had seen a different Adrian. A man whose principles could be broken. A man with endless patience. A man who, even after a long day of important meetings, his eyes full of fatigue, could still laugh and joke with someone. It was just that the person who brought out that side of him was not me. On the way back, besides thinking about our relationship, I was also looking at the company's group chat. After I had resigned, to avoid any conflicts of interest, I had only remained in this casual chat group. Occasionally, when I remembered, I would check it to see what everyone was interested in, so that I could have the administrative department arrange something for the holidays. Because of my prenatal classes and my increased sleepiness, I hadn't looked at it closely in a long time. I never thought that a whim would show me how Chloe and Adrian interacted at the office. Adrian and I had almost never appeared together at the company, and in this group chat, the senior employees rarely spoke. So the new employees, who had only been with the company for a short time, would chat without any inhibitions. They said that Chloe and Adrian looked good together, that she should try harder, get rid of the boss's wife, and take her place. They said that Adrian and Chloe's clothes had been color coordinated for half a month. They wondered if they had planned it, to wear matching outfits to the office. They said that Chloe was Adrian's special exception. She was the only female assistant, and she could eat snacks in Adrian's office and take naps in his private lounge. They said that Chloe was so lucky to have met a boss as good as Adrian right after graduation. Just because a client had accidentally touched her hand, Adrian had flown into a rage and canceled a 6-year partnership. I had indeed had an emotional breakdown over a roasted sweet potato. But after I calmed down, it was Adrian's special treatment of Chloe that made me make this decision. 2 years ago, I had been pulling all-nighters for several days and wanted to lie down in your lounge for a while. You refused, saying I hadn't changed my clothes in 2 days and the shower in the lounge was broken. A year ago, I had a stimulating candy in your office, and you scolded me in front of several department heads, saying the smell made you sick. You tore my report, which I had worked on all night, to shreds. I was hurt by your strict separation of work and private life. But over time, I got used to it. I thought you treated everyone the same, and that was fine. But it turns out that your principles can be ignored. It's just that the person who can break them is not me. Adrian had tried several times to interrupt me, but he didn't say a word until I was finished. After a long pause, when I was sitting on the sofa, Adrian finally spoke. Don't they say that pregnancy makes you stupid? How do you remember things from the past so clearly? He gave a bitter laugh, wiped his face, and sat down next to me. I don't know how to explain it, but I can promise you, I am innocent with Chloe. I believe that. After seeing them together, I knew their current state was exactly like that of a new couple. They didn't need physical contact. Just talking to each other was enough to make them happy for a long time. But innocent did not mean he had not been moved. Hearing my words, Adrian closed his eyes. I admit, my heart has strayed a little, but I never thought of having anything with her. Our child is about to be born. The person I love is you. I also have a phobia, unlike Adrian's. Mine is emotional. I cannot accept that my lover's heart has another woman in it. So, hearing Adrian's almost confession, I said flatly, let's get a divorce. The sight of you makes me sick now. Adrian was so angry he laughed. He laughed for a long time, then looked at my pregnant belly. Have you considered the child? Don't say I didn't warn you. If we get a divorce, you and the baby will not have an easier life than you do now. That was not his concern. On the way back, I had already made my decision. Let's get a divorce. We have a prenuptial agreement. If there are no objections, we'll follow that. We can go to the city hall tomorrow morning. Seeing my serious expression, that I was not just throwing a tantrum, Adrian's face slowly darkened. Eleanor, there's no turning back from this. I hope you don't regret it. You know, once I make a decision, I never go back. I nodded, went to the safe in the study, and took out the prenuptial agreement we had signed. I then found a divorce agreement template online, printed it out, and signed my name. When I came out of the study with the 2 documents, Adrian was sitting on the sofa, smoking. After I got pregnant, he had stopped smelling of smoke. Seeing my frown, he curled his lips. We're getting a divorce. I should have the freedom to smoke, right? I nodded indifferently, handed him the documents and a pen, and gestured for him to sign. Adrian stared at me for a long time, until the heat of the cigarette burned his fingers, and he came back to his senses. See you at the city hall tomorrow at 10. With that, Adrian threw the pen down and walked out. The next morning, I met the dark-eyed Adrian at the entrance of the city hall. Before we went in, he hesitated several times, but in the end, he said nothing. It would be another month before we could get the divorce certificate. After coming out of the city hall, Adrian seemed to have relaxed a bit. You still have 30 days. During this time, I'll give you a chance to regret it. I looked at him seriously and replied, I won't regret it. With that, I ignored Adrian's darkening face and turned to leave. I went to the hospital to schedule an abortion, not wanting my parents to worry. I didn't tell anyone. I planned to tell them after the procedure was done. I don't know who took a photo of Adrian and me going in and out of the city hall and posted it in the company's group chat. On the way home, the group chat was buzzing. Apart from a few people asking why we had suddenly divorced, everyone else was tagging Chloe, telling her to hurry up and win Adrian over. And Chloe, who had rarely spoken in the group chat lately, posted a photo during her lunch break. It was of her on her tiptoes, her arms around Adrian's neck, asking for a kiss. In the photo, Adrian was not doing anything, but he wasn't rejecting her either. Then, a video was posted in the group. Although it was only 30 seconds long, you could clearly see that although Chloe had initiated it, Adrian had soon taken the lead. I saved the video and the photo to my album. When I looked again, the photo and the video had been deleted. And Chloe, in a clumsy attempt to cover her tracks, said, "Wrong place. Everyone, just pretend you didn't see it." Because of Adrian's special treatment of Chloe and Chloe's ability to charm people, the people who often spoke in this group chat all liked her. So, when she said that, many people started to play dumb. Didn't see anything. What was just posted? I missed it. What a pity. Please post it again. I want to see it too. There were also a few who said in the group, "Do you guys have any morals? Isn't this just being a homewrecker?" Exactly. All your benefits were applied for by Mrs. Thorne. Isn't this just biting the hand that feeds you? But these few people were quickly found by the admin and kicked out of the group. Then, someone in the group asked, "There are over 100 people in this group. Do you think, maybe, she is in here?" At that, no one posted anything for a long time. After a while, Chloe said, "What's there to be afraid of? I have a clear conscience." I watched as the number of people in the group slowly decreased from 136. Most of those who left were senior employees who had been with the company for several years. They rarely spoke in this group. Finally, the number stopped at 52. Besides the 50 new employees and interns who had joined this year, the remaining 2 were me and Adrian. I had created the group. I had never thought that one day I would become the subject of discussion in it. Seeing that the number was no longer changing and that no one had posted anything after the others had left, I simply disbanded the group, perhaps knowing that I was pregnant. None of the senior employees had brought up what had happened in the group to me, but a few had dropped hints, reminding me to be careful and not to be deceived by a scumbag. Seeing their concern, their desire to speak but their inability to do so, I smiled. Fortunately, they had proven that I was not a terrible person. Otherwise, I would really feel that I had lived my life in vain. And the smile on my face disappeared the moment I saw Adrian's mother standing at my door. "What's with that expression? It's a hot day, and you're not staying at home. Where have you been gallivanting? If you get sick from the heat, Adrian will have to take you to the doctor again." From the 3rd month of our marriage, every time she saw me, she would find fault with me from head to toe. Before, because I was mindful that she was Adrian's mother, and for the sake of family stability, I had always been as patient as possible. I rarely had conflicts with her. But now, I was already divorced from Adrian. How could I possibly be willing to put up with her nonsense? "Stop finding fault with me for no reason. Your son and I are getting a divorce. This house is mine. Don't come here again." I didn't know where Adrian had stayed last night, but knowing him, he would never have told his mother about the divorce. Sure enough, when she heard me say divorce, she was stunned for a few seconds. Then she started cursing at me. "What's your attitude? This is my son's house. I can come whenever I want. And who says this house is yours?" I don't agree. She had grown up in the countryside and had a booming voice. Seeing the neighbors attracted by her words, and not wanting to be embarrassed, I walked around her and opened the door. Just as I was about to close it, she squeezed in. "Eleanor, I knew you were up to no good." "What?" "Now that my son is making a lot of money, you want to divorce him and take his property." "In your dreams." If I hadn't dodged quickly, her spit would have landed on my face. And seeing my disgusted expression, she became even more displeased. She pushed the door open and shouted with all her might, "Help! My daughter, in-law despises this old woman and won't even let me in the house. Help! My daughter, in-law has been fooling around with another man and is trying to swindle my son out of his money." Seeing her words become more and more outrageous, I directly called the police. Just as I gave them my address, she lunged at me. "I'll kill you, you motherless bitch. You want to call the police and have me arrested? I'll kill you." A neighbor who lived nearby saw that she was really about to attack a pregnant woman and quickly stepped in to stop her. But the neighbor was older than her, and it was clear that she was used to a comfortable life. She was no match for her strength. If the others hadn't arrived in time, the old lady would have been thrown to the ground. And it was because I was distracted by the old lady's situation that she found an opportunity to jump on me. In the scuffle, she grabbed my hair. She didn't care about my pregnant belly and pushed me to the ground. The police station was not far from our complex, so when the police arrived, they saw her sitting on top of me, about to hit me. Stop. Can't you see she's pregnant? She was forcibly dragged away by the police. Even so, she was still cursing. What kind of woman would get a divorce while she's pregnant? The baby in her belly must be a bastard. I'm going to kill her. How dare she cheat on my son? If it weren't for the people beside me, I wouldn't have noticed the strange warmth between my legs. Looking at my white dress, stained red with blood, I suddenly laughed. In front of everyone, I said to her, "You and your son are truly a family. When something goes wrong, you never know how to look for the reason in yourselves." She was taken away by the police, and I was taken to the hospital by a kind person. On the way to the hospital, I made a point of calling Adrian. I don't know why, but the police hadn't contacted him yet. So the moment he answered the phone, I heard him sneer. "What? You regret it already?" The hospital was not far from the company, so Adrian and I arrived at almost the same time. I told him to lean in, and then, when he wasn't looking, I pulled a lock of his hair and handed it to the nurse beside me. Then, under Adrian's bewildered gaze, I was wheeled into the operating room. Before the doors of the operating room closed, I heard the now lucid Adrian anxiously ask the nurse what had happened to me. Why was there so much blood on the bed? I didn't hear what the nurse told him. An abortion is like giving birth. When I was wheeled out of the operating room, I was covered in sweat. The nurse said that Adrian had taken a call and had left in a hurry. I knew he had gone to the police station, so I didn't think much of it. A voluntary abortion and a forced termination due to an accident are two different things. I thought I wouldn't be sad, but when I saw the incubator in the corner, my eyes instantly turned red. My parents had rushed over after receiving my call. Seeing me lying on the bed, my face pale, my mother's tears streamed down her face. My father, who was usually so stoic, also had red eyes and was speechless for a long time. I composed myself, as calmly as possible. I recounted the events of the previous day and my decision to divorce Adrian, and how what was supposed to be an abortion had turned into this because of his mother. Hearing me emotionlessly repeat her curses, my father swore. If my mother hadn't stopped him, I think he would have rushed to the police station immediately. "Eleanor, do whatever you want. It's our fault. We haven't been paying enough attention to you. Otherwise, how could we have let that mother and son bully you like this?" My parents were both researchers and loved to be in the lab. Influenced by them, I had also studied a related major in college, but because Adrian wanted to start his own business, I had given up a precious research position to be with him. I thought that Adrian had seen my sacrifices, that he would, as he had promised at our wedding, love only me for the rest of his life. I was naive. My father, having calmed down, held my hand and asked, "What are you going to do about her?" "If possible, I'll have someone make things a little difficult for her inside." My father had always been devoted to his studies and hated pulling strings, but he was actually willing to make an exception for me. Seeing that I was about to refuse, my father's grip tightened. "Don't overthink it. It's just a phone call. I've dedicated my life to this country. Now that my precious daughter has been bullied, I can't even demand that things be done by the book." Seeing that my father did not intend to use his special privileges, I tacitly agreed to the phone call. And over there, Adrian, who had just paid the bail and was about to take her away, saw the police officer in charge take a call and then return the money to him. "Sorry, your mother can't leave yet, unless the other party chooses to reconcile now." When Adrian rushed to the hospital, my parents were still there. The moment he walked in, my mother slapped him across the face. Adrian was surprised, but he didn't dodge. "Eleanor, I know my mother went too far today, but she's old. Can we just reconcile? I'll have her come to the hospital and apologize to you." Hearing this, my father kicked Adrian to the ground. When he fell, he happened to hit the incubator in the corner. The lid came off, and the smell of blood instantly filled the hospital room. Before he could finish, my mother, realizing what it was, let out a sob and started to cry. And Adrian just stared blankly at the fully formed male fetus in the box, not moving. "Your mother said that no woman would get a divorce while she's pregnant, so she told a lot of people that the baby in my belly was a bastard." Hearing my voice, Adrian turned his head blankly and saw me pull a report from under my pillow. "Remember when I pulled some of your hair before I went into surgery?" This is a paternity test report. Remember to show it to your mother. Adrian took it and glanced at it. The probability on it made him tremble. A moment later, I heard him whimper. I knew you were carrying my child. I never doubted it. Eleanor, I'm sorry. I had said all I needed to say. Seeing me close my eyes, my father pulled Adrian up and pushed him out of the hospital room. Go. Besides coming back in 30 days to get the divorce certificate, remember to transfer all of Eleanor's property to her name. I'll have someone keep an eye on you. My parents, who rarely took a vacation, both took over a month off because of my hospitalization. They stayed with me, helping me recover and clearing out Adrian's things. They tried their best to cheer me up and never mentioned the lost child in front of me. The day I was discharged, Adrian stood far away. He wanted to approach, but my father's glare forced him back. Because the property had not yet been divided, I still had Adrian's contact information. These past few days, he had been sending me messages, more in a day than he had in the past month. But I had not replied once. My mother took me home to recover. One day, she tentatively asked me if I would be willing to join her and my father in the lab full time. Without hesitation, I nodded. Yes, as long as you don't mind that I'm not as qualified, I'm willing to go. My father, who was pretending to watch TV in the living room, immediately ran in. Who would dare to say you're not qualified? After you've rested, you can start studying. You can get a doctorate first. Your mother and I will personally supervise you. The reason I had so resolutely started a business with Adrian was also because I felt I was not as qualified as my parents. I was afraid that if I spent all my time with a group of experts, my intelligence would be crushed. But after all this, I began to envy my parents' simple work environment. Perhaps the lab was where I truly belonged. His mother, who had been clamoring ever since she was taken to the police station, suddenly became quiet after Adrian appeared again. Later, my father went to inquire. It turned out that Adrian had taken the stillborn fetus and the paternity test report to her. He had told her that she had personally killed her own grandson. On the day we got our divorce certificate, Adrian was there before me. The moment he saw me, he forced a smile. Seeing no reaction from me, he lowered his head again. Adrian gave me a lot more money than expected. He didn't say why, but I guessed it had something to do with the child. Getting the certificate was faster than I had expected. After I got it, I suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of relief. Eleanor, have you been well? Your parents haven't let me see you, and you haven't been answering my calls. I was worried about you. I put the divorce certificate in my bag and looked at Adrian seriously. Without your mother causing trouble, my life has been very peaceful. Adrian gave a bitter smile and said in a low voice, I thought that after you had your tantrum, it would be over. I never thought we would actually get a divorce. I didn't expect that because of my mother. Adrian paused and took a deep breath. I was planning to win you back after you had calmed down. I really didn't expect things to turn out this way. Looking at the stiff smile on Adrian's face, I took out my phone and found the photo and video I had saved a month ago. The day after we registered. You were already kissing Chloe, weren't you? Don't you think you're being very hypocritical right now? Adrian's face instantly turned pale. After a long pause, he murmured, whatever I say now, you won't believe me. I was just momentarily possessed. I knew someone was filming, so I thought, what if you saw the photo? You would be jealous. You would regret it. As he spoke, his voice was tinged with a sob. It turns out that I'm the one who will regret it. I really don't understand how things got to this point. The car that was picking me up honked. Hearing the sound, I lost interest in talking to Adrian any further and turned to leave. Eleanor, will I ever see you again? Hearing this, my steps faltered for a moment. Then I said without looking back, there's no need for us to see each other again. Because his mother's actions were the main cause of the loss of the child, and my father had demanded that the case be handled by the book and that he would not accept a settlement. 2 months later, she was sentenced to the maximum of 10 years in prison. My parents and I were in the courtroom to hear the verdict. I hadn't seen her in a while, and she had aged a lot. When she heard she was going to prison for 10 years, she didn't appeal. She just kept her head down, lost in thought. I didn't see Adrian. It was as if, just as I had said, from the day we got our divorce certificate, we had become strangers in a vast sea of people. However, my old colleagues would still send me news of Adrian from time to time. Chloe was pressuring Adrian to marry her. Adrian was unwilling and had transferred her to the sales department, accustomed to special treatment. The moment she arrived in the sales department, she took out her frustrations on her colleagues. But there were many senior employees there, and no one would put up with her nonsense for no reason. Treated as an invisible person, Chloe couldn't take the humiliation. She burst into a meeting while Adrian was in the middle of a deal. She ruined a partnership that the company had worked very hard to secure. After she was fired, Chloe didn't stop. She found all sorts of opportunities to block Adrian. When she couldn't see him, she spread rumors everywhere that Adrian had taken advantage of her and didn't want to take responsibility. The company was greatly affected. Senior employees resigned one after another. Adrian, exhausted, finally snapped when Chloe blocked his car. He stepped on the gas and hit Chloe, leaving her in a vegetative state. Only then did I know why Adrian hadn't been at his mother's sentencing. He had also been imprisoned. Years later, a research project I was involved in was a great success. I had finally found my purpose in life.